All right, happy Tuesday. We're going to start 10.5 day 2 here today. So yesterday, find some blank space down here. Yesterday we looked at when you've got a circle and your angles are intersecting inside the circle. So two angles kind of like this, and maybe you've got an arc of 108 and an arc of, 70. No, that's a little bit too easy. Let's say 42. So we want to find the angles in this circle. These two vertical angles here. So I've got 108 and 72. And yesterday, since they were inside the circle, we would add them, which gets us, that's wrong, 108 and 42 gets us 150 degrees. And then we split that evenly between two angles to get 75 degrees here. So our two vertical angles that intercept these arcs were 75 and 75. So yesterday, our angles were inside the circle, so we added them together. And today we're going to look at what happens when our angles form outside the circle. So there are a couple things we need to worry about here. So let's see. If angle QAP is 60, so QAP is 60, then we've got to think about two things. One, what do we know about our angles formed by a radius and a tangent? And two, what do we know about these opposite angles in our quadrilaterals? So I know the angles formed by a radius and a tangent have to be 90 degrees. It was 10.3. And I know these have to add up to 180, these opposite angles. So opposite angles add to 180. And we can see that works here. 90 plus 90 does get us 180. So I've got 60, and I need to figure out 180 minus 60 gets me what? That'd be 120. So here's 120 degrees and 60 degrees. Now what we're going to be looking at here is I've got two parts of my circle now. I've got this arc, and I've got the rest of the circle. So these two arcs make up a whole circle. And what is the arc measure, or what's the measure of a whole circle? So we found this angle was 120 degrees. I want to find arc PQ, so the pink arc. Let's try to find the pink arc here. My central angle is 120, so the arc must be 120 degrees. And now we're trying to find this green arc here that makes up the rest of the circle. So 120 plus whatever that green arc is has to get me the rest of the circle, has to get me the whole circle. So 360 is going to be that pink arc plus whatever the rest of the circle is. And then we could subtract 120 from 360 and get x is 240 degrees. So 240 plus 120 gets me 360 degrees. And the big change for today, let's think about our last lesson here. So yesterday we looked at when the angles were inside the circle. Being inside is a good thing for now to try to keep us healthy. So if we're inside our house, you know, lowering that chance of infection, inside is a good thing. But here today, our angle is outside the circle. So it's out here. This angle is what we're looking at. So anytime we got an angle outside the circle, anytime you go outside, risk is going up. Not a great thing. That would be a negative thing to go outside right about now. Excuse me. So we're going to subtract. So we'll take, this is 240. Let me change colors there. This is 240. So we'll take our major arc, 240, and we'll subtract our minor arc of 120. So subtract the arc farthest away from your angle. So here's my angle. I'll take the one farthest away, subtract the one closer to it to get (240 minus 120). And we're going to take half of that. So we're going to take half of 120, or 120 divided by 2 is going to get me 60 degrees. So this right here was just to check, just to make sure that things were going well, that I got the right answer. So this is showing me that I did in fact get the right arc measure for 240. All of this seems to work out. I've got a 60-degree angle. So again, that theorem is if that angle is formed outside the circle, we're going to subtract the minor arc from the major arc. And then again, don't forget, we have to divide by 2. So the big difference today from yesterday is that when our angle is inside the circle, being inside is a good thing. Again, we're lowering that risk of infection. So inside is good, that's a positive thing. We'll add our 2 arc measures and divide by 2. And when it's outside, we will subtract the arcs. So for example, I've got this intersection here. This intersection is outside the circle. So my 2 secants, these 2 secants right here, RM and RP, are intersecting outside the circle. That's a negative thing to be outside. So I'm going to take the 2 arcs. I'll take this big arc here, 150. Still a minor arc, but it's the bigger of the 2. It's farther away from R. And I'll subtract 40. So 150, the arc, farthest away from R. And I'll subtract the arc that's closer to R. So 150 minus 40 to get me 110. And then we'll take 110 divided by 2, or half of 110 gets me 55. So I know that angle R here is 55 degrees. All right, so let's check out a couple practice problems. Again, you can always pause these videos, try the problems yourself, and then unpause and see how things are going. You know, what can I work on? What can you work on? And what things do you need to email me about? What questions do you have? Always feel free to email me about any questions, especially homework questions, and I'll do my best to post videos to that up on our classroom, or at least pictures. So number 4 here, I've got 175 is the arc that is farther away from the angle, 175. And this arc right here is 57. So my intersection is outside the circle. That is a negative thing. Being outside is not good right now. So 175 minus 57 is 118. And And then we'll take that 118 degrees and divide by 2 to get 59 degrees. So G is 59 degrees. All right, and I know this next one looks a little bit scary, but we're going to take our same process. So look for your arc. That's the wrong color. Look for your arc here. It's farther away. That's 12x plus 8. And you've got to be very, very careful about combining like terms, making sure that you're subtracting everything. So 12x minus 8, sorry, 12x plus 8, intersection is outside the circle. It's a negative thing, so I'll subtract. And this is where we're going to be careful about I'm subtracting 4x plus 4, which is like saying 12x plus 8 minus 4x minus 4. So if we distribute that negative to both parts, it's like minus 4x and minus 4. So we combine our like terms and we get 8x plus 4. And don't forget, after we do that subtraction, after we combine our like terms, our last step here is we've got to divide by 2. So I'll take this and divide by 2 to get 4x plus 2 equals 50. So let's go back here. Step 1, we noticed our intersection was outside, so we subtracted the bigger arc minus the smaller arc. You know, combined our like terms, did that simplification here, and then we divided by 2 to get 50 degrees. So now let's do our last 2 steps. I'll subtract 2. 4x equals 48. So x must be 12. All right, same thing on number 6. Why don't you try that one? Excuse me, try that one. Pause your video right here. Give that a shot, and then check in a second. Okay, so again, big arc minus your small arc because your intersection point of your 2 secants is outside the circle. So 13x plus 7 minus 60 and then we're going to divide that by 2. So you subtract the 2 arcs, divide by 2 equals 5x minus 10. And now let's think about how to get rid of this fraction. How do I get rid of dividing by 2? I can multiply by 2 on both sides, and don't forget to distribute. So these 2's cancel. 13x minus 53 equals 10x minus 20. So I combined my like terms here into this negative 53. And let me do this in pink for our last step. Our last 2 steps. I can add 53, add 53, and get 13x equals 10x plus 33, subtract 10x, subtract 10x, so 3x is 33, which means that x must be 11. All right, so here, this one, again, same process, but what do I do if I've got an unknown? How can I label an unknown and make it x? So x, and this intersection is outside the circle, so x minus 80, and then we divide that by 2, equals 61. And just like in number 6, how do I get rid of dividing by 2? I can multiply by 2 on both sides. 2's cancel. X minus 80 equals 122. X equals 202 degrees. And the reason why I put degrees on this one and not on number 6 is because here we're solving for a whole arc, whole major arc, not just x, we're solving for a major arc, whereas here we're solving for a variable that goes both in an angle and an arc. It's not really about the measure of any specific object, whereas in number 7 it definitely is. So number 8 and 9, same thing. Let me leave these here. So intersection outside the circle, 195 minus 55 divided by 2 gets me 7x minus 7. How do I get rid of dividing by 2? I can multiply by 2 on both sides. Don't forget to distribute. So the 2's cancel. 195 minus 55 equals 14x minus 14. 140 equals 14x minus 14. So I can add 14. Make this green. 154x. No, that's not right. 154 equals 14x. That's better. So x must be 11. And our very, very last problem for number 9. After you view this, you should be taking your Tuesday mini quiz and then do that 10.5 worksheet 2, or you can do the worksheet first and then take your mini quiz. Really doesn't matter to me a whole lot what order you do it in, but front and back for both sides. So front and back of that 10.5 worksheet number 2. And now I don't know what this is, right? No idea what that measure is. They didn't tell me anything. But let's highlight. Here's the arc I don't know. And where's the arc I do know? What is that? I know this is 135. So if I add the orange plus the green arcs, what should I get? What is that whole circle? So I know that we'll call this Y. You know what? Let's call it G for green. So G plus 135 equals a whole circle, which is 360. Therefore, G must be 200 and, why did it do that? 225 degrees. Okay. So now I know what G is. So I'm going to take that and say 225 minus 135, because again that intersection is outside the circle. And I have to take that and divide it by 2 to get me 45 plus x. And just like we've seen every time before, how do I get rid of dividing by 2? I can multiply by 2 on both sides. Don't forget to distribute. 225 minus 135 equals 90 plus 2x. And it turns out this is 90. equals 90 plus 2x. So don't second guess yourself here. To get the x's by themselves, I could subtract 90. And I'm left with 90 minus 90 is 0 equals 2 times x. And 2 times what gets me 0? X has to be 0. So kind of a startling result, but let's check and make sure this works. If x is 0, then what is this? This right here would have to be 45 plus 0, which is just 45. So 45, is that equal to 225 minus 135 divided by 2? So 225 minus 135 is 90. And if I take 90 divided by 2, then I do in fact get 45 degrees. If I could write a 45 that didn't look, there we go. So everything seems to work out. Again, send me any emails that you have with questions or problems you want to go over, things you want to see explained better. Just let me know, and I will do my best for you to make sure that things still run smoothly. All right, stay safe, wash your hands,